thank you for your instant obedience. Thank you very much. It only took 3/4 of an hour. I would like now to introduce you to the chair of the Squash Ontario Hall of Fame, Dr. Anne Smith.
Thank you and welcome. I'm absolutely delighted to see you all here tonight for this very special event. But before we begin the induction ceremony, I'd just like to take a moment to remember Jim Bentley. Sadly, we heard that he passed away last week after a long battle with a very rare illness. As most of you know, he was the tennis and squash professional here at the Cricket Club for many years, and through him, the club got recognition for their junior tennis and squash programs. And this club, Jim just loved, and it was home for him, till he sadly missed. And so I'd just like all of us to take a minute and honour his memory. Thank you. So tonight we have the induction of 4 outstanding individuals to the Ontario Squash Hall of Fame. Barbara Cooper, Melanie Jans, Jay Gillespie, and Mark Saxby. Brought their unique and exceptional talents to the squash community. They touched and inspired the playing lives of many, both past and still present. Their induction into the Hall of Fame is very well deserved. Congratulations. Just a little bit of history. The Hall of Fame was created in 2004 by Squash Ontario, and the first induction ceremony in 2005. It was created to recognise achievements and contributions to squash, awareness of the history of squash in Ontario, and to preserve the legacy and heritage of the game. It's managed by an independent board of governors. Squash Ontario has contributed to give some resources over the years, but the goal of the board of governors is that the hall be self-sufficient. And thanks to the support we've had from our patrons and friends of the hall, we're pretty close to reaching our goal this year, so thank you. The permanent home of the hall, as probably most of you know, is at the club, the White Oaks, Niagara on the Lake. There are currently 18 members of the Hall of Fame, and tonight we'll have another 4 new members, which is terrific. Now, some of you have asked me about eligibility for the Hall of Fame. There are 2 categories: an athlete who's had extraordinary success as a competitor, as an amateur or professional, and a builder. Within the builder category, we recognise that an individual may have made an extraordinary contribution to the game in a singular role as a volunteer leader, coach or official. But there are also individuals who have made their contributions in a dual role, as a perhaps athlete, a volunteer leader, or an athlete coach, or an athlete official. So this year we added the dual role to the eligibility criteria, which I believe is a very positive move. The Board of Governors has done an excellent job in managing the nomination process from publication to selection. We had an amazing number of high quality nominations this year. It was a very tough competition. Those selected were considered the best for induction this year. Others nominated could well be selected another time, and so can always be re-nominated in the future. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Board of Governors, Peter Hall, Penny Glover, Tony Swift, and Rob Brooks. If each of you would just stand up, please. We have a number of members of the Hall of Fame here tonight, and I'd like each of you to stand up and be recognised as I call you out your name. Sharif Khan. Sue Swift. Marlene Stewart for Ian Stewart. Jerry Sugar. Tony Swift. John Leggett. Graham Riding. Gordy Anderson. And myself. It's time to get on with what we're all eagerly waiting for, the induction ceremony for the class of 2015. So it's a great pleasure to let me introduce you to Paul Wilson, whom I think he needs no introduction, who will be the Master of Ceremonies for the induction ceremony. Thank you.
Again, thank you for your obedience. Tony Swift just asked me, Wilson, what's this tux all about? I would explain it's the only suit I own. It was bought in Waterloo, lost and found 30 years ago for 30 shillings, and it's only got 4 holes in it. So that's why I wear it, actually. Ladies and gentlemen, just let me say one thing. I have been privileged to be at this function since it was inaugurated. This is the 6th year. The original Board of Governors set the bar incredibly high, and I thought, how can they keep that bar that high? Year after year, it has been kept that high, and this year is no exception. And I applaud the Board of Governors for the work they do, because it's not easy, and again, congratulations for being an outstanding class of 2015. I would also just point out, to those of you that have not had a chance to visit the facility, it is absolutely extraordinary. It is done with so much elegance, so much dignity, and so much distinction. And I think, honestly, it is one of the better sports of Hall of Fame that I've seen. I haven't seen any others. Now, to start the induction, our first inductee for 2015, Mark Zachary. Mark was a builder of massive proportions. I would say, although his energies and his enthusiasm were directed at squash, I cannot think of any builder in any sport that contributed more to a sport than Mark Zachary. His energy and enthusiasm for this game that we love was unmatched. He was the rackets director at White Oaks for 3 decades. I always say decades because it sounds much more than 30 years. And he was instrumental in developing that facility into a world-class facility. His initiatives in junior squash he changed the face of junior squash in this country. He introduced the gold, silver and bronze tournament for junior squash. He introduced the Canadian Junior Open so juniors could get international competition. He introduced the Battle of the Border so the juniors could continue to thump the American opponent year after year. And he introduced the Ontario Golf Tournament, which over the years, with helpers, has raised over $50,000 for junior squash in this province. He was an incredible motivator, because when Mark asked you to do something, it was impossible to say no. And if you did say no, you never heard the end of it anyway. Now this, I believe, is the most incredible statistic. He organized, during his time, 220 squash tournaments. Most of us get worn out after 2. 220 squash tournaments he organized. And I'll bet you that every one of those participants, and my maths isn't good enough to work it out, were thoroughly enjoyed every experience. He also found time to be the president of Squash Ontario, and his penultimate idea was to host a national championship, an international championship, and he was due to host the World Women's Team Championship. Unfortunately, he was not able to be present, but I know his guiding influence was there, and so many volunteers stepped up to the plate. Also, this Hall of Fame was his dream and his initiative. And I cannot think of a better place for us who are squash lovers to think that where Mark should finally reside. And there he is, and you will be able to see his photograph in that facility, which, as I say, is magnificent. I would only say that the one phrase, Mr. Squash, to me, is Mark Zachary. Mark, thank you so much for what you did for this game.
He says no.
That's right. And to accept that on behalf of his father, Nick Sackett.
Give Nick the credit on this one. I just wanted to say a few words to thank everyone on behalf of our family. We're super grateful to be here tonight to accept this honor for our dad. And I think building squash in Ontario was one of his greatest passions, and as kind of pointed out, I think one of his greatest qualities was anything he was passionate about, he kind of could see it through, that it was successful. In the last year or so, I've been kind of, for the first time, able to appreciate kind of everything my dad did for the people and the organizations in his life that he put attention into. What I still can't figure out, as pointed out, was kind of how he found the time to do it all. He was able to put so much time and energy into making sure my siblings and I had every chance to be successful, not just in squash, but in everything else. And it's pretty crazy that he could also put that type of attention into so many other things without dropping, without missing out on doing anything for us. I think White Oaks will always be, I know it will always be a second home to us. I think it's where my dad fell in love with squash, started playing squash, began coaching squash, and began running the great events that a lot of us took part in. I think it's safe to say that White Oaks, without my dad, wouldn't be the squash mecca that it kind of is today. But without White Oaks, he wouldn't have had that platform to succeed. And I don't think kind of you could script it better that he's going to end up in the Hall of Fame at White Oaks, right around the corner from the newly named Mark Sackey Squash Center. The programs, events, and successes that are seen at White Oaks today are really a testament to kind of the hard work that he put in from the time he got there, and that helped, you know, make an amazing time for everyone who came through White Oaks, learning how to play squash or just being a part of an event there. And luckily, I was really banking on people having the statistics and stuff ready, because I didn't have the time or resources to look those up, so that worked out for me well. But I know that, you know, although kind of the number of events he hosted, the number of junior champions that in Ontario that he helped get into the sport, the big things that he's going to be remembered for are his personality and the way he did, the way he worked. So I just wanted to touch on a few things that I know my dad was super passionate about, and one was his love for junior squash. He did everything he could to make kids fall in love with the sport. I think he had a special gift for making those kids feel welcome. A lot of times that might have meant making fun of them, but for some weird way it really seemed to work. He also loved hosting the tournaments for adults, which I guess only for 6 or 7 years I've been able to take part in, but he was often too tired to fully partake in some of those after parties of the events, but he always made sure that they were there and that everyone was going to have a good time. And that was, I think a lot of us kind of can appreciate those times. for events in general, he really took pride in how well he could put out the best draw, the best food, the best parties, and the best tournament gifts, just every detail to make sure that everyone involved would have a special time. He wouldn't settle when something was going well, which I think is pretty special. He always saw things another step or two ahead of where they were at the time, even when they were going well. And the number the lessons that I've learned, some of the most valuable ones, are just work hard every day, continue to grow and strive to be great at everything that you do, dream big and do everything you can to make those dreams come true, and then dream it even bigger. And lastly, be selfless, give your time and energy to the people and projects that you're passionate about. You can create an amazing legacy by helping the people around you reach their potential. And just on behalf of my family, I'd like to thank everyone for being here tonight, making this occasion extra special for us. We're so proud of everything that our father has accomplished. And we'd like to send a special thanks to our family, the family and friends that we have at White Oaks, and everyone who has offered us support in the last 18 months. It means a lot, so thank you.
I have to say that any party after a tournament that I was at, Mark Sackvey wasn't too tired. Ladies and gentlemen, our next inductee, Melanie Jans. I remember watching Melanie play as a young girl, and through her career she continued to play this game with dignity, with elegance, with panache, and with passion. She had an incredible career on the international circuit. She represented Canada for a decade and a half. Again, that sounds much better than 14 years. On the international circuit, she reached the rank of 25 in the world, which happens to be the second highest that any Canadian woman has ever achieved. Now I'm going to add to that, I suspect that that's the highest that any Canadian-born woman has ever reached. Certainly the highest that anybody started the game in Georgetown has ever reached. She has won an array of Ontario singles titles, Canadian singles titles, of which there have been 4, and a Canadian mixed doubles title. Her greatest year was probably 1999, world ranking of 25. Mixed doubles title, Canadian singles title, and an outstanding Pan Am accomplishment. Now, Melanie, your accomplishment in the Pan Am Games, I would suggest, cannot be matched by very many people in any sport. In that year, 1999, she won the team gold and the individual gold. That, I think I'm right in saying, was the first year that squash was in the Pan Am Games. She also won the individual and team gold, and that was the year it was held in Winnipeg. Right. In 2000, I'm not very good with these dates, am I really? But in 2003, which was the next Pan Am Games, she won the individual and team silver. And then sorry, in 1990, I must go back here. In 1995, which was the first year squash was in, she won the team gold. So that is an incredible array of medals in the Pan Am Games, and it's particularly appropriate with the Pan Am Games being here this summer. She's currently the teaching professional at Club Meadowvale and has had now the main court at Georgetown is no longer just the main court at Georgetown, it is the Melanie Jans squash court. And you don't often get, you know, they normally name things after people who are dead. So that is another particular accomplishment. But I always think you've been a wonderful ambassador this game and for women's sport. And I cannot think of a better role model for young squash players and women athletes than Melanie Jans. She has epitomized to me, when I've seen her play, a wonderful spirit in which this game is played. She's an outstanding ambassador for the game, a superlative role model, and really congratulations on an outstanding career and becoming a member of the Ontario Squash Hall of Fame.
So the Melanie Jans squash court in Georgetown, I just have to say, it's because my father, Murray Jans, loves me very much. And he happened to be on the committee that year, so I have a feeling that's why the court is there. And also, thank you for the kind words about being the best, or one of the second best player in Canada to reach top 25, but I think Sam Cornett is going to be reaching much higher than that soon because she's really doing great things. She's the one to watch. Now, the definition of success can be different depending on who you talk to. It can also change throughout your lifetime. And I think that Peter Gruber says it best from Mandalay Entertainment. At age 4, the definition of success is not peeing in your pants. At age 12, success is having friends. At age 16, success is having a driver's license. At age 25, success is having sex. At age 35, success is having money. At age 50, success is having lots of money. At age 60, success is having sex. At age 70, success is having a driver's license. And at age 80, success is not peeing in your pants. It would be crazy to be up here and accept this honor without acknowledging all the people that were involved in my development as a player. First of all, my parents, Audrey and Murray Jans, they both played squash. They loved to coach me and tell me what to do. Bend your knees, they would say. Come on, Ellie, bend your knees. At one point, we realized it was not going to work. The whole, mom coaching the daughter thing. So my mom got smart and she sent me to, we had a women's A player. The ladies club champion was Chris Kogan. And I started taking lessons with her. And of course there was a bribe involved. I didn't want to do it. If I did the lesson, we got to go to Tim Hortons after and have a donut. So that was what got me on the court every week with Chris. but thankfully we worked on the foundation, so I think Chris from way back when. And then Dad drove me to all the tournaments, was always super positive, super pumped to be there. Always encouraging words like, you can do it, and you'll get her next time. And my dad was classic. Whenever I was away or if he had a team event, he would track me down somehow, despite efforts to, okay, this time you need pens here. He'd send little faxes. There's this classic one of a stork that's about to eat this frog, and the frog is doing everything he can to not get eaten. And underneath the caption says, never give up. So he would send that fax, and then I'd show Marnie and the team, and we'd roll our eyes, oh, Murray. But deep down, I thought, my dad's a stud. It wasn't until the Pine Valley days, though, that I really thought, you know what, squash, this is going to be my sport. So Rob Brooks was at Pine Valley, and we could talk every day for a week about the contribution that Rob Brooks has made. But what he did for me was this environment at Pine Valley, it showed me that squash was more than a game. It was a way of life, it was friends, family, social, it was a place that you could come to when things were stressful at school or whatever. It was always such a nice environment, and I loved going to Pine Valley. And at the time, there were players like Jonathan, there was Jessica DeMoro. Did you ever know?
It's fraternity.
A little bit. So it was just such a great atmosphere, and it was really then that I got hooked. Like this kind of squash thing. I'm a lifer. And another huge influence on my career is Barb Cooper. Where'd she go? There she is. The thing about Barb was she always looked at an athlete as not just an athlete, but as a person. And we spent a lot of time off the court. I remember many days we sat on the patio at Lakeshore just talking, and I'm sure you were busy and you had all kinds of stuff to do, but you always made time for me, and it was always so nice to have Barb in my corner. And okay, here's an example of how good of a coach Barb is. So we all have those opponents that we hate playing, right? We hate to lose to them, but they're good, so they could actually beat us. Well, one of my opponents was Kelsey Sushiro. So I love Kelsey. We're good friends off the court, but I hated playing her. So for those of you who don't know her, she's 6'7". She hits the ball about 100 miles an hour. Every time we played, it went to 5, like it was a grudge match all the time. And I would get elbows in the face, shoved, like it was a really physical match. And so to prepare me for these tournaments, where I knew I might get up against Kelsey, like a good coach might say, okay, you want to visualize and walk me through visualizing what it's like to be on court with her. No, not Barb. She became Kelsey. So I show up for training one day, and she goes, okay, Mel, we're going to court 12. This could get ugly. I'm like, God, what's going to happen? No idea. So it's within 30 seconds. She's elbowing me, she's shoving me, we're playing. Like, you don't like it? It was just like, have you seen that movie Bridesmaids with Melissa McCarthy when she was with Kristen Wiig? That was Barb in that scene. You don't like it? Tough. Here's an elbow. I don't know. I just thought it was really hilarious. I thought it was very funny. But I'm not sure if that was the reaction that you were hoping. But the thing that it did was that when I did play Kelsey, when I had her coming up, I just was relaxed, like thinking about that time, and I felt prepared, and it just offered a different perspective. So anyway, thank you for that. And the other thing too that Barb showed me was just how to plan my training. She's a level 5 coach. She has a lot of experience, and she really helped me to map out when my hard days, light days, what I need to do, and then I was able to take that into my my career further. So thank you, Barb.
My pleasure.
And due to different life circumstances, and I was in university and transportation was an issue, I could no longer see Barb at the Lakeshore, so I gave Mike Way a call. So Mike was at the TAC, and at the time, there were the top dogs training there, Gary, Graham, Jonathan, Shahir, Kelly Patrick, so it was the place to be. And Mike welcomed me with open arms. And my earliest memory of him was I was on the court, and we were working on forehand drops. And then he notices that at the tin, at the bottom, stuck underneath, was a quarter. So you know how some people would throw their wallets or whatever at the front of the court? And he saw this, and then he suddenly became like that Gollum character in The Lord of the Rings. He's like, oh, this is one of the things I love about being a pro. You get the values change, and he thinks about it. He sticks it in his pocket, and like, this guy's a nut job. And then I thought, you know what, this is gonna work. This is totally gonna work. So I love his craziness. And I always looked forward to coming down to the TAC a little bit early. He'd usually be in the pro shop stringing rackets, and I would just sit there and we'd chat. And he, like Barb, looked at the athlete as a person. And one of the things was I would always go away to tournaments, like when I was playing WSA. And often I'd come back, Mike, I want to hit the ball harder. I want to crunch it. I want court, and the girls are crunching it. Okay, maybe not as hard as like Graham and those guys, but it was hard in my world. People like Sarah Fitzgerald, those guys. Anyway, and he would always say, Mel, that's not your game. Your game is you lob, you drop, you hold, you boast, you move the ball around. That's your game, Mel. And so it finally sunk in after many home and aways coming back. So that was one of the things that he helped me just to buy into my own game. Just to, this is what I've got, this is who I am, don't try and be someone else. So I really am grateful for Mike for that. Should we The clapping helps me find my spot. During that period, Bob Bowers, who couldn't be here tonight, but Bob and Mike were a team. Bob was the personal trainer, and he was just transitioning from the sergeant world to personal training, and he was so excited, and he had all these great ideas, and we were so lucky to be able to work with him as guinea pigs. And whenever we did Bob sessions, we always had to plan for a little later, because we would think that the session would be over in about an hour, but then he'd say, okay, just one more thing, and then it would be one more thing. So he was really generous with his time, and I had to acknowledge that, because without the level of fitness that he helped me with, I definitely wouldn't have gone as far. Now, friends, when you're traveling and playing tournaments, it's so nice to have someone in your corner. You're sharing rooms with, you're sharing flights with. When you step on the court, it's like your life is on the line, really. And so to have someone talking to you between games, they're on your side, it's just really great. And I couldn't ask for better traveling partners than Stephanie Richardson, Margot Green, and Marnie Baisley. They were my 3 travel partners. So the first time was when we went to Australia, and it was so great because it was kind of my first finish university and then play, and Steph was already in Australia, and she had everything organized. She had our flight, she knew exactly when we took our trains. I don't know if you guys know Steph, but she's really organized. So it was kind of like having my mom. Really. She would have bottles of water, make sure we stay hydrated. It was so great having Steph. And then Margot Green, I met Margot as a junior, and I remember going to camps in Ottawa, and they were so much fun, and we would often train outside of the camp. And I just remember this one day, we were getting ready to go, and you were gathering up all the cassettes, and the Ghetto Blaster. I'm like, what are we doing? Oh, we're gonna go train with music. Is there anyone under 15 here? A Ghetto Blaster is a device that plays music. With tapes. Cassette tapes. So anyway, and I remember you walking in the club with it on your shoulder like this. Like the break dancers. So we go to the court, we blast the music, we're playing lots of squash. So Margaret really helped to make squash a lot of fun. And it was just fun having your school friends, then going to tournaments, and then seeing Margot and traveling. It was just so nice. Then later when we played on the WSA, like we had that history, and it was just so great having each other in our corner. And then I probably spent the most time with Marnie. We trained together in Toronto, and then we would travel together for a long time. And the amount of fits and giggles we got into, oh my goodness. And I swear, if it weren't for you, Marnie, I wouldn't have seen half of the stuff that we saw when we traveled. Because Marnie had this mission. She said, we can't come all the way to Paris and just hang out on the squash court. I probably wouldn't have to do it. She's like, I gotta tell Dawn, her dad, that we actually went to places. So she dragged me to the Eiffel Tower, to the Champs-Elysees, and to everywhere. So thank you, Marnie, for So this one time we were staying at a Billet's place, and the family, they had little kids. They had this little pet rabbit, a little cute little Princess Fluff. So Marnie's playing with the rabbit. I wasn't really that interested, but she said, oh, come on, he's so cute. You have to play with him a little bit. So I played, oh, he's really cute. Okay, yeah, time to put him back. So as I'm putting him into the cage, he jumps out of my hands and lands on the floor and doesn't move. So Marnie and I are just like looking at him going, oh my gosh, this is not good. This is not good at all. So we tell our Billets, we tell the family, they take the rabbit to the vet. It turns out that he broke his leg, and they have to do surgery. So we're thinking, oh my gosh, this is nuts. So through the surgery, because the rabbit was in such, he was so overwhelmed, he passed away on the table. I know. So here now, I have to talk to this little girl who they just bought. Funny, like, who is this person from Canada who's staying in my house and who kills my pet rabbit? So I went and got a little bunny and, like, you know, this in memory of Prince Fluff, etc. And the other thing that we always used to do is when we were at a tournament, if we lost, we wanted to make the most of it and play a bunch of players that were all there anyway. So Marnie organizes this tournament, we all kick in $20, that kind of thing. So then I go into the club this one day, this is in Philadelphia. On the one side, there's the WSA draw, and then Marnie's found a nice wall, and she's called it the Prince Fluff Memorial Draw. So then, of course, I had to explain over and over what happened. I'm a bunny killer. Thank you, Marnie. Thank you so much for that. So anyway, if you're a parent and you have a kid and you want them to do well, here's my formula. You get them a good coach who knows what they're doing. Because I'm actually not that talented, but I think because I had supportive parents, I had really good coaches, and then I had friends that made it fun. So if you got a kid in the squash, like, get him playing with his buddies or her with her friends, like, because that's a really important thing. And then if all they need to do is practice and work hard, and they're going to be successful. So anyway, I just wanted to acknowledge all the people that were part of my development, and it's a great honor to be inducted into the Hall of Fame with all this stuff.
I was particularly interested in what's going to happen in the age group category. I'm certainly looking forward to 80. But as I'm deaf in one ear, I wasn't sure whether it was 80 or 70 about the sex activity. But anyway, thank you very much. It's given me a new lease on life. Ladies and gentlemen, Barbara Cooper. You've just heard the influence that Barbara had on Melanie. She has not only had an outstanding playing career, but also an outstanding coaching career. She and I come from the same part of the world originally. You were born in Brighton. I was actually raised in Worthing.
Very close.
Very close. Worthing have much better beer than Brighton. You don't have any beaches in England. Actually, you don't in Brighton. It's all stone beaches. But prior to coming to Canada, Barb represented Great Britain in 2 World Championships, and in 1986 won the World 35+ Championship. She also coached the English women's national team for 7 years in the 80s. She emigrated to Canada in 1988 to be the pro at the newfound Makefair Lakeshore Club. She has a hugely impressive array of national and international titles from this country. 16 Canadian Ontario singles and doubles, including 2 Canadian titles and 2 World 40+ titles. She was a member of the Ontario team that won gold in the Canadian Women's Team Championships, and she's the only level 5 squash coach in this country. She's also the Master Learning Facilitator. Now, I have absolutely no idea what that means. I think as a master, I need some facilitating.
My pleasure.
Oh, look, not only for Squash Ontario and Squash Canada, but for the Coaching Association of Canada. And I think, Bob, that to take your squash coaching to other sports is marvelous. She was awarded the Sil Apps Award for Outstanding Contribution to Squash, which is given out annually by the Ontario government. Now, this is something you may not know. She's also an author. And not just an author, she's a best-selling author. She has written 2 books on squash and has received from the Academy of Best-Selling Authors the Quilly Award, which I presume, and I'm guessing of it here, is awarded annually to an outstanding contribution in writing. So I would describe her really as the William Shakespeare of squash. Well, I have to admit, well, I haven't actually read the books, but I can imagine the brilliant English literature that's being used. Again, we are so fortunate in the squash world to have the people like Barb, who believe so much in this game and believe that young people should be encouraged and enticed and developed in this sport. And I can't think of anybody who has done that better or more in tune with what's going on than Barbara Cooper. So I would ask you to welcome Barbara Cooper.
You know, do you like the jacket? It's all about the jacket. I really, truly, when I look around the room, believe that I should not be standing here on my own. And I'm going to prove it to you as I go through things. But nobody gets to do what I do. And it's an incredibly privileged lifestyle that I've had. I've had a remarkable and privileged way of making a living and being able to see the world. But I haven't done it on my own. And Melanie's talking about, and I'm really thrilled to hear that I did have an influence on you, and even though I elbowed you, you survived. But you know what? Right the way through my career, there's been people there helping and supporting and making sure that I have what I need and encouraging me. And I'm going to start way back when I was part of the England team, and I want to acknowledge Tony Swift. He was actually the national coach of the British team for a bit, and I have to honestly say, he was the only coach that I could understand in England. And I was thinking about this, you know, when you receive an award like this, what you do is you have to go and start looking at photos. And you start thinking back, and you start remembering all of these fabulous things. And I started going back, and I wondered why I got into coaching. And part of it was that Tony was one person who was doing it well, but there were a lot of people who were doing it very badly. And I thought, I can make this simpler and easier. So that's where I kind of went with it. And then I brought the British team over to Canada in 1981. I know, fortunately, when I look around the room, a lot of you will still remember that date. When I mention that, when I'm at the club functions and stuff like that, you know, most of the kids weren't born. So they really don't know what's going on. But in 1981, I brought the British team over here. I was playing, but I was also the manager and coach of the team. And we went to Mayfair Parkway, where the Women's Worlds was being held. And that was organised with Sue Swift as part of the steering committee, Sherry Funston as part of the Squash Ontario, and I was fortunate enough for the England team to have Jan Atkinson as our team host. So Jan, thank you. What a great first impression of Canada. I knew that I was going to like this place because everybody was so hospitable. And then the British team was, we were given the Squash Academy. Do you remember the Squash Academy, which Gordie Anderson and Billy McDonnell owned? That's the club that we trained at. And that's where I met Sybil Witt. Now, Sybil has been, over the last, how long? 30 years. She's my longest standing Canadian friend. That was the first time I met her in 1981. And she's been the one that's always made sure that we've had great leather. Right? So if you ever want to look good, you've got to go and see Sybil. Right? And then, as luck would have it, Sherry and Jan and Squash Ontario invited me to come back and do some exhibition matches and promotional tours. And we were under the impression that we were going to promote tours around Ontario. That was true. But she just didn't tell us which bits of Ontario we were going to go to. So I have seen Kincardine, Timmins, Iroquois Falls. I played squash, honestly. This is, some of you will remember Rhonda Thorne. Rhonda Thorne was the world champion here in 1981. She played the longest female match against Vicky Cardwell in the final. And when she played, she was my closest buddy, right? So I said to Rhonda, Rhonda, please, can you come to Australia, from Australia to Canada, meet me in Canada, we're gonna do this tour around Ontario, it's gonna be great. So Rhonda bought in on that, okay? We're still friends. What I really didn't realize was that she hates flying. So I have Squash Ontario expecting this world champion coming in from Australia to do this fantastic tour to promote the game. Rhonda gets off the plane. She's flown 24 hours. She hates flying, so she drinks. She gets off the plane, she's mute. Now I'm trying to slap her around to sort of get her going so that she looks okay. And I'm saying to Sherry and Squash Ontario, I said, honestly, it's going to be all right. She's going to be fine, okay? Rhonda? So Rhonda, I said to Rhonda, look, you've got to make a good impression. You're going to dinner with all the dignitaries, right? These are important people. So you've got to make a good impression. Rhonda sits mute through dinner. And the only thing she could say is this. I scrub up really well. I really scrub up really well, okay? Well, we did 2 years of those tours, going around doing exhibition matches. I could tell you lots of stories, but the funniest one was when we were in Kincardine. Now in Kincardine, we were playing on an old court with a completely sealed glass back. So the referee could not speak to us, and we could not speak to the referee. So the way we communicated was through a baby intercom that was hung down the back wall. So we're trying to make an event out of this. It's supposed to be fun, you know, so there's banter between the referees and all this sort of stuff. No, we have to go to the back wall, press a button, ask for something, I want a let please, then we'd walk back and we'd have to gesticulate and somebody would say, okay. Well, at that particular event, we'd been going we did 17 cities in 21 days, and when we arrived, we used to arrive at the club, do a whole bunch of lessons, and then at the evening we'd do an exhibition match, and then at the end of that, we would party. And then we'd move on to the next place, right? So by day 15, we are dead, finished. Well, this is day 15, okay. We've got this baby com going on, and Rhonda is dying, and she says to me at the end of the first game, she comes off and she says, Barbara, I can't do this anymore, you're too good, it's yours. I said, Rhonda, we've got to play the match. Can't do it. I said, you got to. So she said, okay. And I said, I know what, I'll tell you where the ball's going. So I am actually saying, both straight, backhand, short, and we're playing this whole match like this. And at the end of it, we lose. Rhonda plays 3 games, right? She walks off the court and we're right down, nobody can see us, and she goes, too good, Dix, too good. Over. Anyway, that was, and Sherry's laughing because she knows all of this is true, okay? So that was the start of my, how can I say it? That was my initiation to Canada. And honestly, when I went around, I go, oh my God, this is such a fabulous place. This is where I fell in love with Canada, going around to these places. And then each year I came back, I used to always play squash with a guy that I hope you remember called Paul Frost. Now, Paul Frost was the owner of Mayfair. Not the owner, the CEO of Mayfair Parkway, but when I first met him, he was the squash pro. And if you knew Paul, he said, one day, we're playing, and this is 1987, we're playing up at Parkway. He says, Bob, he says, I'm building a court down at the lakeshore. Do you want to see it? I didn't know this was a job interview. So I said, yeah, of course, I'd love to go and see it. So he says, okay. So we drive down, and we look at the lakeshore when it's block work. It was grey. And let me tell you, how many of you have played at the Lakeshore? Well, have any of you used the handicap washroom next to the restaurant? Because the only reason you can is because I saw that there was no washroom there. And he said to me, I'm looking for a squash pro. And I go, I could do that job. He said, really? I said, yeah. And that was my job interview to go to come here. Once I arrived, I have to acknowledge some people. You know, again, what I'm trying to tell you is none of this stuff happens without support from so many people around. And the squash community is really unique like that. So at the Lakeshore, I have met so many people, and I have to acknowledge John Stiff. I have to acknowledge, you know, that we were talking about books and stuff like that. Well, the only reason the book, my doubles book, got put in was because, first of all, Marcy Seal was one of my assistants at the time, and she happened to have a summer job working with John Hume. Now, John Hume happens to be in print, digital marketing, and Marcy said, why don't you get the book published? It was my level 5 major project. And so John and Marcy got together, I sent them the manuscript, and then came the trouble. Do you know, when you try and publish a book, do you know what you have to do? Actually, you have to proofread it. And I hate that. I hated it. So John used to come down every Monday and Thursday for House League, and he'd just look. No, I haven't done it yet, John. When? Soon. Next week. Have you done it? No, not yet. And he shamed me into proofing that book. So if there's any more bits that if you ever read it, if there's any more bits in it that you see that are mistakes, that's because I really couldn't face reading it another time. But John, thank you very much for pushing me through that one. The other people that I would like to acknowledge are all of my members, and you know, again, with the community that we have, particularly in Lakeshore, I think that every club has the same group of people. There are always people who are prepared to give, prepared to organize, prepared to give of their time, prepared to help, and we have a phenomenal group at the Lakeshore. And just at the table at the moment, we have Tim and Leslie, Tim Mallory and Leslie Freeman, who I want to acknowledge all of their contribution that they've done over the years for the club. I actually remember when they were both single. And then the other thing that happens is you either make great friends, and that again, I want to acknowledge Jackie, who's sitting at the table, and Jim. Jim, he was an original member and then went away for 20 years. And about 18 months ago, he happened to be walking in the club. And it's like, what are you doing here? And he's back. Fantastic. So Jim, great to see you. Now, talking about support. And I can't let this one go. You know, 27 years ago, we started and we decided that Toronto District had a league, but they didn't have their own club championships. And so we looked at it, we said, this should happen. And we decided we were going to run it out of the Lakeshore. And somebody who has been a supporter of mine and stepped up to the plate every single time I've asked him for help is my own racket sponsor, Fred Reed. And he's sitting over there, and I want to say thank you. Melanie was waxing very lyrical about what we should and shouldn't do, and I'm going to give you a piece of advice about how to look good. Get good people around you. And get good help. I've been working with Darlene we worked it out today for 27 years. So Darlene and I have been original members of the Lakeshore community. She's our manager there. She did not start off that way, but she's a fantastic manager. So Darlene, it's wonderful to work with you, and you really do make me look good. Thank you. And then I want to congratulate Eric, because he's taking this idea of mine and he's really using it. Do you know how? Do you?
Thank you.
My pleasure. Do we have to tell the rest?
Please do.
We probably should. Okay, so Bruce Tobey was my assistant for 20 years. And we still are great friends. We still have projects together. And he's an amazingly creative guy. And let me tell you, he was the one that used to make me look good. I didn't even know how to do an email. When Bruce left, I had to go into major shock and learn skills that I didn't have before. But Bruce, and also Marcy. So Bruce and Marcy now work where?
B&R.
Oh, B&R. So that's why I'm saying Eric knows the best things about people. Make yourself look good by getting good people around you. Okay.
Thanks up for that.
Yeah. So, do you know what's happening in the city soon? Pan Am Games. And we have an amazing team put together for that. Anne Smith and myself are the SOC chairs. So if you see me looking sore, that's because I am. And people say to me, is it your knee or your hip? Actually, it's partly that, but it's also the fact that as soon as I feel even remotely good, I am training so that I don't let all of you down when we do the torch relay, which both Anne and I are going to be doing. And again, we have an amazing team. We've got Rob Brooks, who I see sitting over there. He's my director of field of play. We have Shivani Ruparel, she's going to be athlete services. I see Janice there, who's one of our volunteers. How many others are in the room who have already volunteered for the Pan Am Games? Anyone else? No? Okay. Oh, fantastic. Okay. And the third person who's on the volunteer committee is a woman called Nadia Latmar, who Rob Brooks knows really well because she was a junior at his club for how many years? 15, give or take. Mm-hmm. So, a little plug for the Pan Am Games. You know, this is the first time that squash is going to be in a multi-sport facility. It is the first time it's going to be next to the press center. And it's also the first time it's not in a squash club. So that means the squash is available to people. And what I would beg you to do is encourage people to buy tickets. Do you know what the price is for the most expensive ticket to the squash at the Pan Am Games? Does anyone know?
$40.
35 bucks. And if you're a senior citizen, it's half price. So, so what I'm going to encourage you to do is, please try and get bums and seats. This is a unique opportunity. And just to finish off with, for a lot of people who get emails from me, you will see this at the bottom of my email. It says this: squash is life. Let's live it up. And really, I think if you embrace that idea in your squash, and I know all of you love this game, me too, I can't tell you how proud and honored I am to become inducted into this Hall of Fame with so many people who have affected my life so profoundly over the years, life-changing for me. I want to thank you all for your kindness. I want to thank you all for listening. And I want to acknowledge Sharif there, who really fantastic. He and I found a photo of you and I when we opened the Richmond Hill Club. They opened a court there, and again, when I started to reminisce about this stuff, all of you, thank you, because I really feel like you should be up here behind me because you've been pushing me along all the time. Thank you so much.
Barb, if Tony Swift were the only coach you understand, I don't know how the hell the other ones survived. Ladies and gentlemen, our fourth inductee, Jay Gillespie. Jay was mentored at an early age by Jim Bentley, which followed in this club and has been a member of this club. He also then went to the University of Toronto and was mentored by another icon, Ralph Rimmer. And he graduated in languages. Then went to Europe, and he stayed, you know, as kids then did, they traveled around, but he stayed. And as a language graduate, I think he's probably the only coach in the world who's coached in 3 languages. Not at the same time. But French, German, and English, because he coached in France, Germany, and here. And I think that's a unique situation. He was the Trinity College Athlete of the Year at U of T. He's in the University of Toronto Hall of Fame, and the cricket club here, Squash Hall of Fame. And in the 70s, he captained the Canadian national junior team on its tour of Australia. But this is an amazing statistic. Jay Gillespie has won 44, yes, 4 Ontario, Canadian, US, and world titles. Three of those were world titles, and that's doubles. But he's also, during that time, won from 2004 to 2014, which to my reckoning is 1 year ago, 11 Canadian mixed doubles title in a row. In addition, he's won 9 singles titles, both in softball and hardball, but Canadian titles and intercollegiate titles and Ontario titles. So that totals to me 53 titles, singles and doubles. When he sent me an email, under it was the title or the nickname Jungle Jim. Now,
Jungle Jim.
I said Jungle Jim just to see whether you were awake. Jungle J. And I thought, now how did you get that? But he tells me that in his youth, and I think this will require some imagination now looking at it, he had an afro. And since that, that's how he came with the title Jungle J. You're awake, so I get the name right. But Jay, that's an incredible playing. 53 titles. And you've coached at so many levels, junior, intermediate, good players, high-class players, and beginners. And you've contributed so much to this game, both as a guardian of it, as an ambassador of it, and as a spokesman for. And I think I congratulate you now for reaching the Ontario Squash Hall of Fame with all the other pièces de resistance of this sport. Congratulations.
There we go.
Glasses on.
All right. Yeah, all right.
Oh, no, oh, it's you guys. What do you know? I want to start off by saying thank you, Paul, for the wonderful introduction. Those are really, really kind words. In fact, it actually sounded so good, I almost didn't recognize myself. But really, I'm really happy to be here this evening in more ways than one. And I think a lot of you know where I'm coming from with that comment. Anyway, when I look around the room, I can see so many friends, partners, opponents. It's like an extended family. It's partners and opponents on the left wall and partners and opponents on the right wall. I see, for example, I see Steve Heisey's out here, who won the Canadian Juniors in 1973. And I see Pat Richardson over there somewhere. And Pat Richardson, who used to be a tall, lanky guy from Vancouver with long brown hair. Imagine that. Wow. And there's Graham over there. Graham, I'm giving you the hand, so stop talking, Duff. And Mr. Tim Bovaird, who's still, in the fancy suit I might say, who still claims that he owns at least 3 of the titles listed on the famous Purple Racket. I think Sue Swift is over here somewhere. And Sue Swift, she used to always try and put me in the veterans when I was only 20 years old. She said it was because of my premature gray hair. I'm like, what premature gray hair? Oh, what do you know? And I see Lolly Gillam, the famous mixed doubles player, where is she? There she is. Who doubles as a photographer in her spare time. And the other person that is, well, actually it's a different note, but blatantly missing tonight, but hopefully smiling down on us, is the icon Jim Bentley. And that, my friends, is just to name a few. Because there's lots of people out here that also need mentioning, but I can't mention everybody right now. But I'm truly honored to be here this evening, and I feel very privileged to be inducted into the Ontario Squash Hall of Fame. In fact, it's always been one of my life goals, I have to say. And to be included among so many distinguished players and builders of the game of squash is, for me, it's amazing. What can I say? So I must thank, first and foremost, Sherry Funston and her team from Squash Ontario for putting on this wonderful event tonight. We have to thank the Cricket Club for hosting this lovely event. And I want to thank Ann Smith and the Board of Governors for approving my nomination and making all this happen. And people on the Board of Governors. I also wish to pronounce my sincere congratulations to the other inductees this evening: Barb Cooper, Melanie Jans, Mark and Cindy Sackvey, and Son. So congratulations to you guys. And of course, I thank you all for coming out tonight to support us this evening. Because frankly, without you guys, there is no evening. I mean, let's face it, there is no evening. So thank you to all of you. Before I go any further, I want to try an experiment which was inspired by the famous Peter Hall. Where's Peter? He's over there. By the famous Peter Hall, who, as we all know or suspect, must have shares in the company that owns Rub A535 antiphlogistin. Yep, Peter's in here. Peter used to do this experiment in the locker rooms, but I'm going to try it tonight and see if it works. Here we go. It goes like this. It's called Hello Partner. I'm going to call out Hello Partner, and you guys, then if you've ever been my partner, you respond with Hello Jungle. And so, not till I say go, but we're going to try it now. Are you ready? Hello Partner. Hello Jungle. Okay, it worked. Now we're going to take it one step further, and I'm taking a little bit of a risk here, but I'm going to do it anyway. If you've ever beaten me, or you think you've beaten me, or you wanted to beat me, you can respond with, Hello Jungle. But not yet, not till I say go. Okay, so, are you ready? 1, 2, 3, go! Hello Jungle! Shoot! I knew that was going to be the loudest. I knew that was going to happen. And frankly, the truth is, I didn't really want to hear that. But it is what it is, as they say. As Graham always says, it is what it is, so you can't get away from it. Anyway, but what does that show? Why are you doing all this? Well, what it shows is that a lifetime of squash produces an amazing and wide circle of friends and acquaintances, even if they do beat you from time to time. But it's true. Some of my favorite memories include winning the Canadian Open Singles in 1981 in Montreal. It was my first Canadian title ever. And winning the, I won't say who I beat, but it was Vicious Victor. He did me a big favor by beating Ned Edwards in the semis. And then he was tuckered out for the finals. Thanks, Vic. If only he was here tonight. I told him we'd be talking about him behind his back. And winning the World 40 Plus doubles in 1998 in Toronto with Graham I'm on Fire Duff. I loved winning the Canadian Open doubles in 1982 in Toronto with David Hetherington, who hit so many 3-wall nicks, some people thought he came from, I know it's my notes, from Nicaragua. Nice knickers, David. I really enjoyed being selected captain of the Canadian junior team to Australia in 1975, and being selected for the Can-Am Cup as both a player and a referee in Boston, Buffalo, and Montreal. So when I think about squash, however, it's not just about winning titles. As some of the other speakers tonight would say, although it's more fun, it is fun to win, it's more about the camaraderie and the travel and the doors that are opened through the game of squash. And as the late Jim Mason would say, and Taylor, you'll go along with this, I know Taylor always says this, it's all about the 3 F's. Fitness, fun, and friendship. There's no getting around that. Speaking of friendships, squash was the vehicle that opened a whole new world for me. I was able to make friends and travel all through Europe simply because I could play squash. And Paul Wilson was saying, you know, you can go anywhere. As long as you can play squash, it opens the doors. After my undergraduate degree at U of T, I left for Germany and France with a letter of recommendation from our late great friend, Eric Whiffen. I coached juniors, adults, and teams in Germany, which included taking 15-year-old Carol Martini to become German national junior champion and German Open finalist. I traveled to tournaments in England, Holland, Belgium, and Switzerland, and then went to France to meet up with my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and that's Lily. She was waiting for me down in Paris. I told her to go and set up shop and I'd come and join her later. And she fell for it. We traveled to Monte Carlo and all around France on the French Pro-Am circuit, le circuit pour hommes. In France, I coached the juniors and the team of the Stade Francais. And then, again, I coached and trained 14-year-old Paul Akaway to become the French junior champion. So what do we learn from all this? Have racket, will travel. As a youngster or oldster, when you arrive in a new city, all you have to do is look up squash in the telephone book. Well, okay, the internet. Telephone book's a little, look it up on the internet. You go to the club, and as soon as they see that you're good-ish at squash, they all want to be your friend. It works. Squash is a door opener and a friend maker. It just works. That's how it goes. What makes things extra special is that many of the friends that we made over in Germany and France are still friends today. As recently as this summer, we received a visit here in Toronto from a 48-year-old Paul Akaway, who was the kid that I coached in Paris when he was 14 years old. He wanted to visit because Jay had been such an inspiration to him in his turbulent teenage years. And he said he still tells his kids about that crazy squash coach he used to have back in his Paris days. I'm like, what crazy squash coach? What are you talking about? Get back here. Rude. Anyway, coming back to the 3 Fs, as recently as this past weekend, I played a friendly game of squash doubles, and as we came off the court to have a drink together, I was thinking, that was so much fun. It was competitive, it was in a clean, competitive, friendly way, and then you take a step back and you say, that's why we play this game. It's because it's so much fun. That's what it is. We're all competitors, but it's the fun and the friendships and the good times that make us continue to do what we do. And often, we don't even remember if we won or we lost. Okay, well maybe we do. Because I do remember that bad net call that was made at 14-13 in the 5th. And that was 20 years ago. But we still had fun, and we're still friends. So it works. The formula's still there. It all goes to show that it's really all about the people. It's the people that make the game. So, we have an amazing squash community here in Ontario and beyond. It's not just Ontario. Just look around you. It's like an extended family. And that's another reason why this honor is so special to me tonight. In closing, I can't end this speech without mentioning the wonderful support that I've received from my parents and family. My parents rarely missed a match when I was a junior, and even in my, as a not junior, they took a keen interest in my squash career and were always eager to hear my results. The pattern continues now with my father, John, and his wife, and his partner, Wynne Barkley. My sister Joan is here from Vancouver. And my sister Sue is here from, where's Susie? She's there from Ottawa. And my other sister Jill is still in Australia. She's using distance to travel as her flimsy excuse for not being here tonight. I don't get that one, but that's what she says. My wife Lily and my kids Sean and Jackie, with her boyfriend Pat, are also keen supporters, and I thank them for that. I have to say in closing, that it's a real pleasure for me to be able to partner with my son. Oh man, I'm getting, okay, I gotta keep it. Yeah, right, I'm getting verklempt. It's a real pleasure for me to be able to partner in doubles with my son Sean and to watch him flourish in the game that we love so much. Thank you all so very much, and have a great rest of the evening. And now, as they say in the scribes, it's Jungle Jay, over and out.
ladies and gentlemen, on your behalf, I would just again like to congratulate the 4 inductees, plus all the other inductees that are here. I don't think this is actually, I think actually Ontario Squash Hall of Fame, it may be a misnomer. I think this is actually the Canadian Squash Hall of Fame. And I don't think anybody could argue about that because from any other province, because they're probably not here, but they shouldn't. But again, thank you very much for being with us. I again congratulate those 4 inductees, and I think we should give them a rousing final round of applause.
It was a privilege to represent my father and my family in honoring him into the Squash Ontario Hall of Fame.
So tonight was a really fun night, sitting at the table with my friends, the former inductees, and I was a little nervous about the speech, but just it was good to have a chance to acknowledge the people after a long time, because it's not often that you get a chance to actually thank the people publicly that had a lot to do with my success, I guess. So it was quite an honor, very special night.
I had a great time tonight. It was so much fun to be with friends, talking about squash and receiving this awesome acknowledgement of everything that you try to do in squash.
As we've said for years, it comes down to what Jim Mason used to say, it's all about the 3 Fs, fitness, fun, and friendship, and that is the most important thing.